guys, Jessica Henry here. Just wanted to welcome you back to my studio today. I have something crazy fun planned today. I am going to do a lobster. He was just freshly killed. I just went down to the fish store and asked for their prettiest little lobster, and they went ahead and found one out for me and killed him right there on the spot. So he is dead. He might move a little bit, which would be kind of exciting and scary. So anyway, I have him set up here and I'm gonna put him on the canvas, and I have never done this before, so this might be a really interesting thing. We're gonna join in this journey here together. What I have out today is, this is my palette. I just have my titanium white, cadmium yellow pale, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, phthalo green, and some alizarin crimson. I have some cobalt here. I don't believe I'll have a use for it. And then I also have some cadmium red medium, because there's some really pretty, really vibrant orange spots on this lobster that I want to try to get. Alright, so I have my canvas here. What size is this? This is a 12 by 16. I thought it might be interesting to have a longer format. And this one is toned with a little burnt sienna, yellow ochre, and just a touch of ultramarine blue. I like to work on a toned canvas because it already has a middle tone ground done for me. So all I'm going to really focus on is getting the values in place and the drawing accurate. And I'll lay that in with just some ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and a little Gamsol. And I'll draw it in, and then I'll work in some color. So this is just a study. It's not going to be, you know, sort of a finished still life. But this is what I'm going to work from. Okay, so to begin, I'm just going to grab a smaller brush. This is a size 2 filbert, and I'm going to use my Gamsol I have here in my little cup on my easel. And I'm sitting today in my high chair, and I have my palette right here on my legs, and there's really not going to be a whole lot of interesting things that I'm doing on it today. So I'm not going to be holding it up real high so you can see what I'm doing, because the colors are just going to be, you know, just basic ultramarine blue, burnt sienna. Alright, so I'm going to jump in, and I've arranged him so that part of him is hanging off the edge of the counter, which I think is really interesting. And he's at a sort of a diagonal, so I'm going to play with some of those perspective problems. Alright, jumping in. A little bit nervous. I've never done any kind of crustacean before. So I can't really say, well, normally when I paint lobsters, so we're doing this together. I mean, maybe you have experience. I don't know. I don't. So let's go. I'm looking at my format here, my rectangle, and again, even though it's just a study, I'm still thinking about making this aesthetically pleasing. So if my counter, the edge of my shelf is roughly about like there, making sure you can see it. If his big claw is hanging, you know, I'm going to raise this up because his claw is longer than that, so easy to fix mistakes. Maybe we'll put the edge of the counter here because this claw will run about there, and this one will be here. Just so you know, that this lobster is not going to be dying in vain. I do plan on cooking him and eating him. So we're all good. It's not like I'm going to throw him away. I think I like the distance here. And then if this claw ends about there, that creates a nice distance from there to the edge. And this claw is here. I don't imagine that I will be finishing this whole thing today. I might. I may just finish it on my own time. I'm just looking to see, is that the right... If I have this size, then I may make the rest of this a little bit smaller. So I'll bring his body down a little, like that. Ben, do you think I should do this live?
What, today?
Yeah.
What? I don't think anybody's going to be up there. No one knows what you're going to do with it.
Alright, so I'm pretty happy with that top line right there. Thinking about his tail ending here. It comes up like this, and the abdomen, I guess that's what that part is called. I flunked out on crustacean anatomy class, so we're going to just wing it here with my verbiology. So his eyes and all this stuff is in here, and all whatever that is. That'll be kind of fun to paint. All of this stuff, and then the joint goes like this, and this claw. See, by giving myself these marks, I've allowed myself that much space to fit this in. So I want to kind of see it more as a whole. Because what can happen when you're drawing things like this is you get caught up on one little thing and one little thing and one little thing. And if you just go along this way, before you know it, you're off the canvas, or you've gotten too big or too small in different passages. By trying to take it all in as a whole, you help, it kind of helps to get rid of some of those tendencies to have drawing problems that way. Okay, so I'm feeling good about that passage. This is all really dark under here, except for that little gap of light in there, which is important. All these little pockets of light underneath him over there are going to be helpful to really make him look like he's sitting up on this shelf. And then I'm just kind of getting some of this drawing just right in there. And just using the Gamsol on my palette. I'm not going to worry about all the detail in here at this point, because it's really not essential as I'm drawing this out. It will be later on, but not right now. And I like this cast shadow that his claw is making on the counter there, because that really makes it look like it's hanging off the edge. There. And it's okay to mass in values as you see them. I like to get a feel of where things are going right away. This is all going to be just kind of masked in a dark area. Okay, and then this big shiny bright thing right here, kind of a triangular, almost like a strawberry shape right here. It comes down. This primeval, archaic looking claw. Okay, this is shorter. It's moving. Let's put that a little bit shorter and up like that. Just don't want it too close to the edge down here, but yeah, it's just the way it's going to go. Now, I'm going to pause this and raise the whole thing up. Okay, so I raised up the whole thing about a good couple of inches, and I feel better about that layout. Giving this the amount of space it needed. I didn't want it too close to the edge because it would create too much tension. So, but I feel much better about this. And see, he was down here, and so I moved him up there. All right, so moving forward in this, I've got, basically, it's laid out where I want it. In this passage here where I have negative space, I'm going to be playing with the shadows, cast shadows, and making that look, you know, interesting, whatever. So that's what my plan is with this area, and I'll just kind of let that just be suggested back there. All right, so moving on to now just laying in some of the values. I'm going to get my darkest areas in first. So, of course, I just use ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. I am going to add a little bit of oil at this point because I am starting to lay down color. And I see that when I look at that lobster, I see right on the back here is really dark, and then going down to the head. When I squint down at this, I'm just getting in passages right now where I see it the blackest color on there. And it happens to be right in this passage. And then some shadows, which I always add a little bit more blue to the shadows. I have natural light coming in here from the window, and so my light is going to be cooler while my shadows are going to be warmer in this case. So I'm going to be keeping the shadows. I did say ultramarine blue, but I'm going to just make sure that there's some of this undercoat showing through so that they have that warm quality to the shadows. Alright, so just kind of glazing in that shadow passage under the body. I say glazing, but I guess I just mean like a light scumble tone as it goes back there. I think that looks interesting back that way. And I've got his tail touching down on the table here, so I'll just kind of keep that all dark and muted. I'll be adding more of the burnt sienna and probably some cadmium to this passage, red or yellow, to make it look like it's his tail, and it's kind of glowing back there too, so put some of that as we get closer. Okay, and then just to get some of the shadows on these side feet things. And shoots back this way. Shadows. And then there's sort of a grayish shadow on his claw right here, grayish black. It appears gray because the light is hitting it. So I will get some of that in there. I'll just maybe add a little bit of white to that blue and brown mixture right now. It's kind of a fun one. I will put this painting available for sale on my website, because I think this is going to be a really cool painting. I have spent now a few years here living in the New England area. I mean, I'm in New York, but I lived up in Massachusetts, New Hampshire for a while, and it was quite an experience. I love being out here on the Atlantic Ocean. This lobster was caught right out here in the water. I think that's neat. I'm from Minnesota, so we weren't really catching lobsters there. Right. Again, just sort of mapping out some of these. Can you see that thing moving? Yeah. Really interesting. It's just nerves. I assure you, it is dead. It is kind of freaking me out a little bit, though. All right, again, just to recap here, I am mapping in just anatomical things where I see darker values. And then I'll mix up sort of a tone that I see in multiple places. In this case, this is just sort of a warm brown, darker mixture. And I'm applying it where I see it, working the whole thing as a whole. I like to paint in that manner because it creates more of a sense of unity when I can see the whole painting come together, and the different passages seem to make more sense when the colors, this color's here and it's there and it's there. So I'm using a little bit more burnt sienna now as I'm moving towards things being a little bit lighter, kind of going away from that blackish, adding a little bit of yellow ochre into that. You can see how, not really. I'm just taking burnt sienna and yellow ochre, just making a nice little mixture there. As I move into these passages where it's a little lighter, cleaning my brush off. This passage, when I was laying it in, was sort of a middle tone wash, so I'll just kind of scumble that in there. I'll be adding more detail into that later, but for now, I'm just getting the tone there. I say tone, I guess I'm meaning mass or value mass. And as I squint, I'm looking under his belly and I see that it's kind of like a yellow ochre tone, where it's not as vibrant, but it still has sort of that orangier tone. I think that I've got, yeah, I know I have some burnt sienna on here, so it's sort of mixing with that. Always squinting at that just to see where things are simplified. I've taken some cadmium red medium mixed with cadmium yellow light, and that gives me a really nice kind of earthy orange because I had some of that sienna color on my brush already. So I'm just going in here with these passages, I hope that's visible, laying down just clean shadowy pieces of that orange tone. I'm going to grab some alizarin crimson just to put that right here. And again, this lobster is not cooked, so he's not really brilliant red, but he has some really pretty color, and that's why I picked this one. Just laying down segments of color back here. And this is pretty much a brownish alizarin back here on the tail, so I'm just going to lay down clean pieces of paint for those passages of the tail as they go back that way. And under the body. Where it touches the table. Just keeping all that really quiet. These segments here. I think I'll come back through here with some blacker tones and get those passages where it was really dark. This is interesting. I've never done this before. Oh my goodness. Let's see what sort of mess I can make. Get some more of that ultramarine blue. That ultramarine blue mixed with the burnt sienna makes a really nice blackish tone. I use that in just about everything. I don't mind that this tail is really quite dark because it really is in the shadow. And I'm just focusing on it for now because I really want to devote time and attention to this passage in here. I'm going to use the background to also help in keeping this quiet back here. Sharp angles. Always looking to find angles and just took a little bit of white with the burnt sienna and yellow ochre just to touch up some of these passages back here where I see just a few subtle highlights. I don't want to go too crazy with that. I'll just keep it simple. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to move on to this passage in here now and really start playing with some of the rich, brilliant colors in there. Cleaning my brush off. Okay, yeah, I'm just going to jump in. Taking cadmium yellow with the cadmium red, maybe a little bit of white. Scoop up some of that. I've got this brilliant passage right here. Now I'm looking around to see anywhere else where I might have that. I see it down here. I'd like to keep that with less white in it, so I'm grabbing the red and the yellow, just pure red and yellow. Cad red medium, cad yellow pale. Nice passage right here. Okay, and I see it going up the claw here and on this side. And then I see a shadowed passage of that same brilliant color right there. And over here. Again, working it all as a whole makes it have that greater feeling of continuity and working together. One more yellow ochre to this. I see right here. No, I want more cad in there. Cad yellow. Touch of white. We'll pull out just a little bit of white will make it appear more yellow. Okay, moving towards the back of this. I'm sure lobster experts would definitely be able to educate me on the different anatomical parts of this guy, but for now, yeah, that just happened. For now, I'm just gonna call him whatever I think, especially since my left brain is doing everything it can to work. I think as I move towards the back of this cavity here, I want it to be a little more alizarin, because alizarin, crimson, is a cooler red, and cool colors recede into the background. So I want that to really have that feeling of going back. And then I'll use more of the cadmium red as the light comes forward, and it'll have that illusion of near and far. Just working in some of that yellow ochre into that mixture of dark. Just kind of helps that area. Once I'm able to start adding shines and little tiny details, it'll all kind of start making a little bit more sense. But for now, you have to work in layers. I don't know what that thing is on the front of the lobster. It's like a little snout thingy, so I'm gonna put that in. Alright, I'm gonna focus on this claw right in here now. Not that that's done, I'm sure I'll jump back to it, but for now I'm just gonna work on this area. Taking some beautiful cadmium red, maybe a little bit of alizarin crimson mixed with that cadmium red, some yellow ochre, looking at these different joints as they come out. And this has this passage here where it comes up and down around into the shadow. Same thing with over here. I see some more of that red. Okay, I'm having a lot of fun with this. I hope that this is enjoyable to watch. It's different. So, there's all these little spikes on here too that I think I'm going to have fun trying to get in. And it comes like this. I see that I'm adding some white to this because I see this really cool highlight on here, and because I'm going to work that in layers, I'm starting with sort of a grayish highlight, but onto that I will add more detail, and then I'll hit it with the highlight towards the end. Same thing with here, getting a little more blue into that gray. This is really neat bend in that claw. Things like this. I see some over here too. Let me scoop up some more of that. Well, I have this color here, this gray color, and I see it for these side leg things that come out. So I'm going to lay that down for that. I've got a passage here, the one's a little bit darker, so I'll go up that. And some yellow ochre at the bottom. Same thing with this one. I hope all that is showing up. If you'd like, I can drag this in a little bit closer so you can see what I'm doing here a little bit better. As I start working on more of this detail, that might be more interesting to get up close and personal. Okay. Zeroing in on this. So you can see now, I'm just going to take some oranger tones and really start jumping in with some of this detail in here. And over here. Carrying it down over onto this side. Maybe a little bit more alizarin into that, because this little feature down here is extra claw, or whatever this is, like the opposable thumb. Seems like it's a cooler tone and less vibrant than the main part of the cloth. Alright. Getting some of my blackish tone and kind of refining some of these shapes where I see that sort of that color around the edges. Once I get the background in, then I'll start adding some of these spikes that are on here that make it look really interesting. Get that nice and dark in there. And then I've got this pretty shadow, red shadow, all along the edge of this cloth. I'm going to grab that right now, because when I add the background, I will use that to help soften things and whatever. It's actually mostly blackish down here around the bottom part of the cloth. And to do that is just my ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. It gives you a nice strong black. If you have any white in your brush at all, you won't get it really black though. So you gotta make sure it's really clean. Sometimes I found that even what's on my paper towel is tainting what's on my brush, so even though I can wipe it, I'm not getting a clean representation of what I'm looking for. So you have to just watch that. And I see it darker over here inside the claw, there. And right at the tip, I see this beautiful cadmium sort of glow right there. Same thing with over here. But that's mostly alizarin over here. So I'm going to pull out some of that more. Alright. Painting that needed to be a little bit brighter. I will work on, this has a beautiful contour over here, so I'm going to play with some of that once I get the background going more over there. In fact, I'm thinking I'm going to step away from working on the lobster for a while, and then I'll work on the background, so that kind of starts to have that read that I'm looking for. Again, I always try to work things as a whole. It creates a better sense of unity. So cleaning my brush off, getting rid of this paper towel, getting a new one. I'm gonna start on the background, maybe a little bit bigger brush. Okay, so to do that, I'm just gonna take some white, yellow ochre, and I think that for now, that's gonna be fine for my highlight passages, my lit passages back here. So let's see, where is this strongest? Just making these notations where I want really strong light to hit. It's going to have a really interesting read by just pulling those out right away. Okay, so let me work on this shape here. This contour comes down and then it dips and goes back out. Right. I'm going to add a touch of blue to cool that down a little bit. Okay. Yeah, that's reading a little better there. All right. The edge of that table is right about there. A little bit of oil into this will kind of thin it down a little. Gonna put some of that shadowy tone, and because this lobster is mostly in the orange family, I'm going to use more blue in the background just to make him pop a little bit more. Kind of grayer blue. That top line is going to get, I'm going to work on that a little bit more because it's not really reading right. I want this actually quite a bit darker over here. It would read more interesting if this passage was darker. Okay, so I'm going to put this in fast forward, do the background, and then I'll come back. Okay, so I'll tell you what I just did with the background. I know that there's a horrible glare on it, and I've been fighting with it to try to somehow stop it, but I do have natural light on the lobster, so it's kind of, I gotta juggle it here. So anyway, what I did with the background is I tried to create this atmosphere around him and under, and then create the illusion of this light on the surface of the table, the edge of the table, and then the shadow underneath. So by doing that, I just darkened in these values. I will go through and add more accents and sharper, darker anchors and highlights and things as I go along. But yeah, that's pretty much what I did with the background. And then I did do some splashy dribbles and let some of this just sort of fall down and just to create a visual interest right there. All right, so now I'm going to go through and just tighten up some of this information in here. I'm going to go back to my smaller brush. Okay, so I've got my size 2 brush again, and I'm going to go back in now with some grayish yellow ochre. I make that with the burnt sienna and ultramarine blue and a little bit of yellow ochre because I sort of see this, it's almost like a greenish tint in here. It's just where the eyes and all of this, where the antenna things come out, all of this passage in here. And again, even though I did do the background, I will still work on refining some of this background shape a little bit more, or using the background to refine that shape a little bit more in here. So this shell piece in here needed a little bit of shape refinement. Some darker pieces in here, just defining whatever that is in there. Not really sure. The eyes are right there. This thing comes, a little noodle on its head, whatever that is. Gonna take, while I have it here, just fixing this shape. I want this to have a nice sharp edge here. Laying that down as a piece of clean color. And then this back here, as it comes up and around. Then a little bit more of those back in here. Cleaning out the background. And I don't mind that this gets soft and lost back in there because I think that this passage should be quieter and let this part in here be where the real show is. I do want a sharp edge right under the tail though, because that really gives the illusion of it being up off the table. I'm using that background in there to kind of refine that shape a little bit. So easy to get some of that color where it doesn't belong. So let's get that in there. Alright. I'll fiddle with that later. Alright, getting back to what I really mean to do, this area. Get some more of this background to, keeps getting away from me there. Okay. Oops. Giving that shape a little bit more finesse, a little more accuracy in there. Okay. Alright. Moving on. I'm seeing, when I squint at this passage in here, I know that there's a bunch of little teeny tiny dots making this have that illusion, but I'm going to just mass it in as a value to, when I squint down at it, that's just what I see. I see this value in here like this. And I like how this is coming around. I'll just pull that out a little bit more. A little more alizarin. Putting in some pretty pieces of color, nice chunks of paint. Grabbing some of that cadmium. Alright. When I do the final detail passage in here, then I'll add some of those little tiny dots and things that I see. Just a few, not too much to be distracting, but enough to be interesting. Okay. Taking some of this gray color that I see under here, laying that down. This is all really interesting. I'll definitely paint a lobster again. I hope that this looks interesting to you guys too, that you might find this a unique challenge. Maybe you're watching and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to try that. That would be really cool. These things are neat. Very prehistoric looking. Let me see some highlight. I mean, I'm trying to kind of hurry here because I know that my time on these videos is limited. People don't watch them for very long, so I want to try to hurry it along, but my goodness, this is really fascinating. I would like to take more time, and I may stop and fast forward these as we go along, because I think it's worth taking the time on this lobster to, really pull out his beauty. It's beautiful. The more you look at something, the more you see how really beautiful something is. That's one of the things I enjoy doing about portraits too. So I'm cleaning up under the belly here because I want this to read a little bit more accurate. Right down here where his feet are. Kind of looks like a mess right now, but it'll make sense here in a few minutes. I'll tie it all together. This is the lighter tone of the tabletop. Again, kind of cleaning it in between the legs here. Let's get this a little better here. And then since I have that color on the brush, we'll put it over here. I see more of this shadow here that I want to try to get that down a little better. And refine this shape in here as it comes, like the body comes around and up like this. And then I'll come back through there and pop in those highlights that were under there a little better. Where'd those go? Here they are. There's one. Grab some of that ochre. Like that. Alright. Now his legs have kind of settled into where they're going to sit, so I'm going to sort of redraw those back where I see them now, because I like them better now. This one comes out like that. That one. You can always just redraw things, on your painting as you're going along. This one is a little bigger, and it comes up like this, and it kind of lays like this. Yeah, that feels about right. Okay, so I see some yellow ochre at the joints. And down here. This will make more sense when I get the shadows and the highlights on too. That'll add a lot. Some pretty red in there. We'll pop that in. Maybe some alizarin crimson back in here. And then I'm going to clean my brush and grab some blue. I see some blue and white in there. Just Alright, I'm going to just push that highlight a little bit more so that maybe I can just be done with those legs here pretty soon. So that is a white with some of that blue that I was using in it. I'm just keeping it real simple. And up in here. I think that's about as far as I want to push those legs. Maybe I'll do some stronger shadows on the table. Let's clean that a little bit. This is just ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. Okay, so that's kind of reading how I want it to do. And this is just a stronger accent back here for the tail. I kind of needed a little bit more of that anchor to the table. Just cleaning that up a bit there. Okay, moving along. I'm going to wrap that part up there. I might need a new paper towel. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the head here now and just again tighten this up. Once you get things, all the characters in place where you want everything to go, then it's really just a matter of cleaning and tightening things and just making sure that it's all going to read accurately. So I think that all those accents are pretty good and in place where they need to be. I want this to look like the table on the other side. So that needs a little bit more cleaning there. Yeah, I think that matches that. That's reading like space on the other side of that. Again, I do apologize for that glare on there. I wish that there was a way to get rid of that, but I don't know. I do apologize. Anyway, I'm just going to keep plowing forward. Okay, and then these legs in here, I'm seeing more burnt sienna, yellow ochre. Because I keep the colors on my palette so limited, I don't have to wonder and guess and, oh, well, what colors did I use? It's all right there. Really simple. Just giving this a little bit cleaner feel over here. There's some highlight on here that I want to get. some shines. I'm going to start getting some of these shines in here now. Really will start to come alive now. Sometimes when you're doing seafood, you may want a spritz bottle, just to get like a water bottle to keep it handy because it'll start to dry. And you want that to really feel shiny and wet, like you just caught it. Clean that off. So I'm just using some white and a little bit of kind of a sienna color that I had on here. Just to pull out some of these. I didn't want to use just glaring white, like white out of the tube, because it would just sort of have a pasty look, and I really don't want that look going on here. Press and lift to get that shine. Press and lift. Maybe a little bit more intense than I want there. So I'm going to just wiping my brush off and using the side of it, I can get rid of some of that intensity. Like that. Just cleaning this up. Okay. See some dark under here. Alright, what I'm going to do now is go through and add some of those detail things that I was talking about, the little spikes and things like that. Just using the same brush. I'm taking some cadmium red and some cadmium yellow. I'm going through and just popping in a few of these like this. Just where I see them. Since I've been sitting here looking at this lobster, I've been kind of getting a little more familiar with where those little spikes are and where I'm going to put them. Maybe a little bit more cadmium yellow because they're hard to see. So just a few little, I don't need all of them that I see, but just a few to suggest. And in passages like this, it's okay to use a little bit more oil. I use a little more oil because it thins the paint down and makes your little dots have a little more clarity. I don't know if you'll be able to see that from over there with that glare. And then a few little bumpity bumps in here. Let's pull out some of these in here. Okay, now I'm going to go through and just take a nice runny white, linseed oil, well, a little bit more linseed, and just some white. Definitely want to make sure that my brush is clean. And grab some more of that because this is gonna, I'm gonna do some clean shines on here. Just a few, I don't want too many, but just, if you get it a little bit runny, again, it'll have a cleaner little dab, so you want it to look shiny and wet. That's what's gonna do it. And I will put those antennas in when I get to that. Maybe all I want in there, just a few, like that. Okay. Well, let's see, that's fun. All right, now the antennas. So that, to me, just looks like it's burnt sienna and a little bit of alizarin. I'll grab a little ultramarine blue. Let's see where those go. I think I'm gonna, oh, maybe this brush will be fine. This size too. Let's see what happens. So they come out straight. More paint. Down. And under. And then this one, it's down. Just cleaning that up a little bit. I want that to have a little bit of a highlight on it. Run out of paint, go get some more. Over here. And like where the antennas attach, there's these little mechanism things. So I'll just kind of make those look like something like that. You don't need a ton of detail, just enough to get the feeling across. I want that going like that. So maybe I'll clean that up a little bit like that. That's better. Let's do something with this. Okay. Well, I think that that's about as far as I'm going to take this lobster here. Maybe I'll get this antenna here a little cast shadow. This makes it look a little interesting. Okay, you can pick these things apart to death forever, so I'm just going to stop. And that's it. Well, I wanted to thank you so much for joining me. I had a ball doing this lobster, and I hope that you enjoyed it and got something out of it. Okay, thanks so much. Again, I'm Jessica Henry, and if you like what you saw here, don't forget to like and subscribe, and that's it. Thanks so much, guys. Bye-bye.